Yes, plumbers, welcome back. Bigger footy. We've got the all-star lineup, the same crew here again. We've got Flanas, Tommy Flanagan. Flan, how are you, mate?
Patto, very good. Great to be here.
One of the sharpest and most passionate minds, crunching the numbers as always. Good old Flan, coming in hot off a big win from the Schwannies. Plenty of Schwanny time. JJ, Josh Jenkins, one of the, I'd have to say, JJ would be one of the best minds out there at the moment. Ability to take you inside the mindset and the psyche of the players and also the coaches from his time as a premiership ruck coach down at the Cattery. JJ, how you feeling, mate?
Going well, boys. Yeah, I'd have my work cut out for me if I was still at the Cats because Reece Stanley did a little hammy on Saturday night. So ruck by committee for the Cats, but no, going well. I was lucky enough I called the Battle of the Bridge, the Sydney Derby, yesterday. It was incredibly spirited. Maybe a few boys copping some fines across the day on Monday as we record, potentially, but big weekend of footy. I reckon it was saved somewhat for the neutrals by Saturday night. It was an absolute classic, but a couple of the other games on paper that should have been really good were a little bit of a letdown.
There were a few blowouts, weren't there? But I mean, the bigger the stage, sometimes you can get a side mentally not up for the challenge. So we'll unpack all of that. And behind the decks over there, the best producer in the biz, Josh Robert Moffat. Moff, how are we feeling, Moff? What's going on?
Yeah, good. Besides Saturday night's result, was a good weekend and some good footy. So we're going well, Patto.
Flan, what was your moment of the round?
Moment of the round, Jack Gunston joined the 500 goal club and became the 65th player in VFL AFL history to do so. Of current players, only Jezza Cameron, Tex Walker, Jack Darling and his teammate Luke Bruce have kicked more and did it in style in front of the Hawks faithful. Yeah. They were celebrating a big day for the club.
He is one of the best snaps of the footy after playing a couple of games with Gunno. He's incredible, like his skill level for his size, and he's gone again and he's sort of reborn back from the Lions.
Third in the Coleman
at the moment. Yeah, he's been huge with a couple of key tall injuries for the Hawks. So yeah, kudos to Gunno. JJ, what was your moment of the round?
Well, I am going to go head-to-head with you, I think, Patto, and I heard all about Max Gawn, and I'm leaving Max for you momentarily. But I'll tell you what, a man who has been an All-Australian not that long ago, but has been ridiculed since, Tim English, he put up a stat line that I don't think we've ever seen from a ruckman across the competition. 27 disposals for Big Tim English. We know at his best he's always been able to get around the ground, get behind the ball and take marks. I think he's benefiting from the Dogs being smaller in the front half because there's actually some space for him to move into inside 50. So 27 disposals. He kicked 3 goals, had 3 direct goal assists, 17 score involvements, and took 6 marks, if you don't mind. He had 30 hitouts as well, playing against an old teammate of his, Jordan Sweet. So that is an unbelievable day at the office for a man who has been heavily criticised in the past 12 months.
And when we talk about Sam Darcy being, a bit of a unicorn, like Tim English as well, like he's in that Dean Cox mould, very skillful for a big man. Yeah, I agree with you, JJ. He was fantastic. And yes, we love our 200 pluses here. So mine was Max Gawn, 35 touches, 9 clearances, 47 hitouts from Max. It wasn't that long ago that Goody was mentioning in the press conference that he'd been struggling with some stuff away from footy. Tristan Shetty gave him a bit of a touch up, but Max was really back to his best. So I enjoyed Max's performance. What about you, Moff? What was your moment?
I really liked Hugo Garcia's bounce back from Ross's spray last week. Obviously getting subbed out early in the second term. He played the full game this week and had 19 and a goal in an emphatic St Kilda win, very Ross Lyon style. So, the Saints boys, they produced after copping a bit of a spray from Ross last week, and I liked it.
They did.
It was a Ross special, and Freo continued to disappoint. So, we'll touch on them later. JJ, let's get into the main talking point from the weekend. I think it was the big blockbuster rivalry between Collingwood and Geelong. How did you see that game?
Oh, well, sensational game. I mean, Collingwood probably just didn't put the game away when they had. They did seem to be in control for most of the evening. They just couldn't put the Cats away. Now, Craig McRae's comments after the game were really. I found them really fascinating. He spoke about how he felt like it was almost a bit of rope-a-dope. Geelong knew they were a little bit outgunned, a little bit undermanned. Probably couldn't go blow for blow with the Pies. So they almost, defended from the back heavily, were able to take their opportunities. He used the term, Geelong are a team that get a lot of layups. So he when he's saying that, I think he's talking about, they're keen to get back and defend and understand they're probably not going to win the game blow for blow. So let's defend staunchly, and then when we get an opportunity, let's go and take it, and let's try and get some scoreboard pressure in that regard, because they do have some guys, Stengel and Ollie Henry and Jezza, who don't need many chances to hit the scoreboard. So fascinating game of footy, and as I said, Flan, saved the round.
Yeah, it was game of the year for mine, and certainly did save the round. We needed it. Talk about momentum in footy, and it was massive momentum game. Cats up at the start, kicked the first 3. Then Pies kicked 6 out of the next 7. Then in the middle of the game, bit of to and fro. Cats kick 1, Pies kick 1, Cats kick 2, Pies kick 2. And then Geelong went on that big run at the start of the last, kick 5 in a row to get the lead back. And then right at the end, the Pies kicked another couple, got the momentum back, and one more would have pinched it. Jack Crisp, in his record-breaking 245th consecutive game, big mark, and the set shot on the siren from 50 to win it. You couldn't have scripted it any better, but footy is a cruel game. And he's normally such a great set shot, Jack. 9 times out of 10, you'd back him to kick that, but rushed it a bit in the moment.
Hopefully he doesn't get dropped next week. I mean, he's got the record now. No, the script would have been amazing if he had to put that through. It was very interesting, the tactics in that last centre bounce. Clever from Nick Dacos to pull away from the clearance there and have the 2-on-2 and a bit more space. I thought that was really interesting. That tag from Ocean Mullen on Dacos was interesting. I think he was a little bit quiet in the last quarter. But yeah, cracking game. JJ, what did you think of the tag and Dacos and the way it sort of played out at the end?
Well, look, I know Oisin well, and these Irish guys are so bloody competitive. It's not funny. They're really sneaky athletes. Think about Zach Tui. They're almost built like a square. They've got square backs. They're incredibly powerful. McKenna at Brisbane's a similar type of body. They're so powerful, the Irish guys. Callum Brown in GWS, these guys are so powerful and so strong. So I thought Nick Dacos would probably blow him up, but Mullen was always going to stick to his guns. It was an interesting move at the end. You'd probably want Dacos to not be the one moving away from that initial contest. That's the only change you'd make. I know he's getting tagged, but you'd probably want him around the ball at all costs. But all in all, both teams are going to be there when the whips are cracking. I've got almost no doubt about it. Geelong are very skinny. Geelong, I think, only had 3 AFL listed players in their VFL team. So they've got a lot of injured players. Now, we've got no idea how long they're injured for because they're all either to be confirmed, indefinite, or test. So they're playing ducks and drakes with us on the injury front. But they've got injuries all over the place. I think Collingwood missed a trick. I think teams miss a trick against Geelong if you don't tag one of Bailey Smith or Max Holmes. We've called them the Slash Brothers. Now, Holmes' game wasn't dominant, but he wasn't tagged. And Bailey Smith was off the chain, 34 disposals, 700-plus metres gained, kicked a big goal. I think when you let those two boys roam free, you do that potentially at your peril.
And Dangerfield's 17 contested possessions, again, was absolutely massive when the whips were cracking there in the last quarter. Mitch Duncan, his first game of the year, he was a big in, 20 disposals at 85. He's a good get to get back in. Sean Manor, 24 pressure acts, 8 clearances, 9 score involvements. He's a player that continues to get better. Ollie Dempsey was huge again. Whenever he gets involved, the Cats look really dangerous. But it was interesting with the Pies that Darcy Cameron was big again. Dacos brothers, side bottom Pendlebury, they had 134 and 3 goals between them. But they couldn't penetrate Geelong's defence as easily as they have in previous weeks with other teams. Last week against Essendon, Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill had 9 scoring shots. Week before that, they had 7 against Brisbane. Week before that, against Sydney, they had 9. And this week, just the 3. So Geelong's defending made it really difficult for the Collingwood Smalls to get involved like they normally do.
Yeah, I reckon the teams have got to get up to speed as well on what the Cats are doing with Ollie Dempsey playing as a winger. Like he's kicked, I believe he's kicked 8 out of his 14 goals from the goal square this year, and he's been playing primarily as a winger. He took that hanger on Steele's side bottom, rolling down as the fat side winger, and like Sidebottom plays the wing as well as anyone that's played the wing in the last 10 years since the roles become really specific. But Sidebottom doesn't want to be there in marking contests against someone like Dempsey, who's really springy, really athletic, incredibly clever. Dempsey, he's been able to get goals, getting a toe on the ball right on the goal line. He's just remarkably clever in the way he goes about it. So I think teams need to get up to speed on how Dempsey plays the wing, because at the moment the Cats are getting a big advantage in that spot.
Well, he's actually number 1 in the comp for the most clean crumbs per game. He gets 2.3 clean crumbs a game.
Clean crumbs. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that stat.
So Ollie
Well,
Dempsey.
he did start out. He was a small forward, like he was a small crumbing, running half forward in his first couple of years on the list at the Cats. Now, I must admit, I couldn't see it. But Nigel Lappin, who's an absolute guru in the space, he kept saying to me, I'm telling you, he's going to be a player. He's going to be a player. And I don't know. I just can't see it. But that's why I'm here talking to you boys, and he's continuing to develop absolute superstars of the competition. So that's a big win, because Dempsey's a difficult matchup for them. And the other one you mentioned, Flanas, which is a really, really good pickup, is Sean Manor. So he's coming up as the half forward to contests. I don't think teams have worked out how to deal with it that well as yet, because what Manor is, and you mentioned the pressure stats, he's a really good tackler. So he's not just going up there to try and get a quick possession or try and get himself in the game. He's putting great pressure on the opposition. And what he is doing is getting his hands on the ball as well. And most teams at the moment are trying to defend Manor. They're letting Manor come up to stoppage, and they're saying, well, I'll just sweep off the back of the contest and I'll pick him up as he moves forward. Problem is, a lot of the times he's just kicking the ball above and past that defender, and that defender's becoming null and void, and it's getting kicked into 4-on-4 and 5-on-5. And we've seen now what it looks like when you're giving Dangerfield 1-on-1 in space. He doesn't have to mark it, but at ground level, he is an absolute demon at the moment.
And I mentioned how Geelong defended Collingwood's forward 50 and how they didn't let their smalls get involved. Some numbers to back that up. Max Holmes had 7 intercepts. Lawson Humphreys had the 7 rebound 50s. Connor O'Sullivan and Mark Blixavs had 14 spoils between them. And Sam DeConnick and Mark O'Connor had 9 intercept marks between them. So that Geelong back six is a pretty well-oiled machine at the moment. And, didn't allow Elliott and Hill to have any time and space.
They're very organised, aren't they? I mean, there's a couple of tricks you can play these days, and definitely the wing and the half forward roles going up into the stoppage. I think, I mean, as a wingman playing on Ollie Dempsey, you want to try and hand him over and let him go down back. But when he runs at the right time, when Geelong are in possession of the footy, then you're kind of stuck. You have to go with him. I think, it's a good challenge that when your team wins the footy, punish him back the other way. Like if he wants to try and push in behind the ball, you got to keep him accountable and try and push forward on him. But that's the challenge. JJ, if you're in the Geelong match review today, that last centre bounce, are you telling Mullen just to stay as in that sort of sweeper role and not go with Dacos at the centre bounce and just hold your position? Or, what do you think the counteract would be to some of these moves?
No, I don't think there's any issue with the way Mullen played it. And look, it wasn't that actual first contest that left Geelong vulnerable. It was the secondary stoppage where Darcy Cameron was remarkably clever. And a lot of teams speak about, when there's a minute to go and a team's trying to hold the ball in, the worst thing you can do is just dive on them and let 3 guys lay a tackle. You need to make it a really obvious, almost just tag them, put your hand in the air and make it obvious to the umpire that the player or your opponent's not trying to get rid of the ball. And Darcy Cameron did it brilliantly. I heard Mark Blitzarves talking to Fox Footy after the game, and he said, look, Cameron just kind of outsmarted me. I was just trying to hold that ball in, not cough it up, make sure that they weren't going to be able to move it forward. So it was really, really smart work from Darcy Cameron. So effectively, look, it's a 2-on-2. You've got the wingers in Dempsey. I think Jeremy Cameron started on the other wing for that last centre bounce. They're all the way back as far as they're allowed to go. That is one element of the 6-6-6 rule that works quite nicely. I guess we just don't get to see it that much because we don't get to those moments very often.
Definitely. No, it was a huge game. I think Collingwood Geelong, I'd love to see that, another final later this year.
Felt like a final, didn't it?
Yeah.
It is a brutal... Craig McRae spoke about that. Now, he gets no sympathy from me because teams like GWS get on a plane 13 times a year. It's a brutal little turnaround for Collingwood. He has flagged. Now, depending on when you're listening to this, Moffy's flagged. Craig McRae, he said, watch this space. None of the emergencies played in the VFL. I reckon there's some chance Collingwood send over a team that's got 4 or 5 guys who aren't in it from that game against Geelong because they will be on a plane. So they played Saturday night. You get home at, God knows what time, midnight. You don't get to sleep until, 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning if you're one of those types. And then they're on a plane, I reckon, Tuesday afternoon to get to Perth for Thursday night's game. So I reckon watch this space on Collingwood's team, Moff. Do you know any more about that?
I've got a bit of intel that Pendlebury and Sidebottom may be rested for this week. So the Perth trip, like you said, Thursday night, Howe was this week. I don't know if Howe comes back in or they give him another week. But, yeah, watch this space. Pendles and Sidebottom, they won't be lining up Thursday night.
Yeah.
Moff definitely has the inside word. Some of that stuff we had to cut out of the pod last week, but Moff is very close to the boys, so take that as gospel. But yeah, looking forward to Freo Collingwood. I actually think next week there's some good matchups. But yeah, that one will be a great chance for Freo to bounce back, especially if Collingwood are resting a few sore bodies.
Before we move on from the Collingwood Geelong game, I've got a bone to pick with someone, Patto.
Yes,
and it's Bailey Smith.
Oh,
I thought.
What's your issue
I
there?
thought the comments on Thursday night, having a little jab at the Dogs, wasn't funny. It's just disrespectful. I think Bailey's had it pretty good in the AFL. Obviously going down with that knee injury, but we're quick to forget this man was given a couple of months off in the middle of footy season to go to a Euro summer. Where, when has any other player had that freedom to do that while on an AFL list? Which, don't get me wrong, they've got an unbelievable job, but that's the kind of sacrifice you make as a footballer. You don't get to do that kind of thing. He was given that freedom to go over there, and I just think the baiting on social media isn't funny. It's just disrespectful, and I liked Bont going back at him because they could have rolled over and just said nothing, but I'm all for theatre in sport. I love it. But, yeah, there's a line where it's, just a bit disrespectful.
You don't have a European holiday book this year in the footy season, do you, Moff?
Pot calling the kettles.
No, but you're right. And Bont's comments, you've really teed up a feisty game later in the year. I love that from the Bont. Very classy.
Big or not big on Bailey Smith having a crack at his old team? Where do we sit?
I didn't... Yeah, I thought he could have left it out. I was watching it live, and I would have left it out. I just think Bailey Smith's a pretty immature dude. I don't know him. I've never met him, but I just think he's an immature dude. I think he's, even the way he said it. He said something about I was scared when Jack Crisp was having a shot for goal. He just seems a little bit immature to me. I would have left it out. I agree mostly with what Moff said. We're not privy to all the details, but when players are rehabbing and whatnot, there was a long period of the year last year where all of us sort of thought to ourselves, well, hang on, he's done the 11 or 12 months that most players do for an ACL. What's going on here? So I probably agree with Moff.
I think what he's kind of established this year, he's given the bird a couple of times to the crowd, and I think you get what you get with him a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people would lean on the side of that's pretty funny banter, like the crowd difference between 83,000 on Saturday night and 4,000 Ballarat. It's 80,000 crowd difference. So I thought it was pretty humorous. The little jab at the Ballarat. You don't get that in Ballarat. I thought it was a funny line, but yeah, it's starting to become every week with Baz. So
I think for me it wasn't just a line. He went on social media afterwards and put a location of the Salty Dog Cafe. And like just
That's
that
not
stuff.
needed.
Like after the comments saying something like that's funny, that's humorous. But like when you're trying to bait on social media, let's grow up.
Yeah.
I'd love to see if like Corey Enright and Matty Scarlett was still in this Geelong team. If they had someone like Basilenka in there, how they'd deal with some of that nonsense.
He's going to have to face off with Libera in a couple of weeks' time, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
In his defence, now I doubt he was there, but in his defence, there is a Salty Dog Cafe in Torquay. I highly doubt he was there, but I reckon that was definitely. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Moff. Like that was just one step too far. Definitely, from a club perspective. Now, I'm not always, well, in fact, I rarely defend the clubs, but from a club perspective, the reason you'd probably like him to pull up is because every player that speaks this week gets asked about Bailey Smith. Every player that speaks next week gets asked about what's it going to be like, Bailey up against the old team. So it does suck a lot of energy from everyone else. If it was just purely about Bailey and Chris Scott was able to handle it, then that's fine. But it can become irritating when you are having to talk about the same person or the same thing consistently. That's when it can become a little bit irritable inside a footy club. Having said that, Geelong are as good as anyone at handling and blocking that stuff out.
Do you think the way the Bailey Smith stuff played out last year has influenced the way the Dogs are handling Jamara and a bit of a harder stance?
I don't know enough about the detail of both. I just don't know. I mean, it's easy for us to speculate, and I'm pretty sure we all feel like we know what's going on, but I genuinely don't know all the details. So I think it sounds like Jamara's got himself tangled up in, and look, he is gallivanting around on social media and nightclubs and whatnot. He seems like, despite the personal issues that we've been told about, he seems to be flying in the face of just conforming to being a professional athlete.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like the Dogs, as Moff said, accommodated him last year, and he sort of turned around and has, flipped the bird back in their face. So I think the Dogs are a bit more line in the stand now around how they're going to treat some of these difficult characters.
It feels like they're prioritising football and playing good footy at the moment, because on the weekend they were blistering. It was they'll have to be close to the toughest assignment in footy at the moment, going down to the Dogs and Ballarat. No one wants to go down there.
The Fortress.
We shouldn't be playing there at the moment. I don't want to be. There's more excavators than people in the crowd at the moment. They're unlucky that the side being redeveloped is the side that the cameras face. They might need to video the game or film the game from the other side of the ground. But make it up to them make it up to Ballarat when the stands are finished. Like, it's a dead set eyesore at the moment, and windy as anything.
Wasn't a great look, but the Dogs are one of 10 Victorian teams, and they need to own a region. So I get why, but yeah, it's a good point. Maybe the timing's just a bit off why they rebuild the stands.
After quarter time, they kicked 18 goals to 3 against Port Adelaide on the weekend. Ed Richards is a bloke that I think we need to start looking at for votes, Brownlow, coaches' votes, this sort of thing. He's leading the comp this year for score involvements, goal assists, and inside 50s.
Yeah.
And he and Bailey Dale, they had a field day on the weekend, 60 effective kicks and 1,300 metres gained between the two of them.
Yeah.
And if you're playing the Dogs, if you're Port Adelaide, you just have to put work into those two blokes, or they're going to cut you up. You can't just let Ed Richards and Bailey Dale run free reign.
Yeah, we love the Dogs at the moment.
We've been talking about the Dogs a little bit, haven't we, in terms of... I've used the comparisons around Brisbane last year with the injuries and then the young guys who stood up and made them better. And Geelong a few years ago when they had some older players depart the club and then young guys like Holmes and De Koning came in and made them better. Like, O'Donnell and Bustling are holding down, spots down back, not allowing Liam Jones to even get a game. I don't think Liam Jones's form has been that bad. Buku Karmas is doing the job. We know about the explosions from Davidson and Fraser and a few others. Ed Richards. We interviewed on radio Ed Richards last year when he went into the midfield, and I asked him specifically, I said, have you gone in there to stay in there, or have you gone in there just to cover a hole? And he said, I think I'm in here for a month or so, and then I'll go back to half-back. Problem is, he's one of the best mids in the game. He can't go to half-back. So, Treloar comes back. and all of a sudden, instead of Richards going back to half-back and it's just status quo, now you've got Treloar and Richards and Bont and Libba and Fraser, and all of a sudden you're running into a freight train.
They just quietly snuck Treloar back in there, had 27 with 9 score involvements and a goal as a nice little add on the weekend.
Little cherry on top. They've got a huge game next week against the Suns up in Darwin.
Yeah, that's the Gold Coast were, I think, unbeaten up there last year. They hammered Geelong on a Thursday night up there. So Gold Coast enjoy it up there. And I'm now wedded to the team that's been stung in the tail, like Gold Coast have been, and we'll get to them very, very shortly, against the team that's feeling themselves. You've got to go with the team that's been stung. So I cannot wait for that game up there in Darwin, despite, I don't know if you ever played up there, Patto, it is a bloody difficult place to get a kick.
No, I played in Alice Springs, and just the dew at night time. It was so slippery, and that was very tricky. But let's move on to Sydney and the Giants, a battle of the bridge. Flanas, I know you'll be very happy here, but we need to rein you in a little bit because we want to keep moving and get to some of the other games as well. But what did you think, mate? Schwanni's bouncing back. It was a great win, huge rivalry, and exposes the Giants again. A few question marks.
We called for it last week. That's what we love to see. 4-quarter, big effort, Bloods footy, and Giants got up and running for a little bit in the second quarter. But apart from that, thought Swans controlled the contest all day, and they were just tougher across the 4 quarters. Didn't give them any room to run, and they got real physical and got under the skin of the Giants players. But they stayed focused, even though they were taking the fight to them. Didn't all go the Swans' way either. The Giants won the free kick count 27-9, but that persistence to not worry about what's happening with the umpires, just get on with it and make sure of the result and not let the Giants get on top at any stage of the game was really pleasing. You would have thought pre-game with a forward line with Jesse Hogan, Aaron Cadman, Jake Stringer, Toby Green, that the Swans' backs might have had a few issues, but all the boys back there, they had a big day and didn't give them any room to move inside 50. And in the middle, Warner and Heaney and Rowbottom, they were huge again. Did a number on the GWS mids. James Jordan stopped Whitfield. McInerney was back in form. And that execution going forward to centre was a lot better. The Swans had more marks inside 50, won that 16-9. More forward 50 tackles. And a lot of credit there, I think, has to go to that makeshift forward group. McLean, Hamling, Francis, Cleary, Corey Warner, who provided great pressure, and they all functioned really well together and got us a winning score. So that's the blueprint for Schwannies.
JJ, what did you think of Hamling's role on Sammy Taylor?
It was 2 defenders just niggling at each other. It was, I mentioned it in the call on the radio. Hamling was playing forward, but he played it exactly as he would as a defender. He was almost trying to get in behind Taylor and bump him and niggle him. It was just dead set 2 defenders going at it. Just happened to be Hamling playing as a forward. He kicked 2 posters. He'd never kicked a goal in his career, and he hit the post twice, and we're thinking, geez, he's gonna be stiff to miss out. Because, I mean, who knows? If they get a body or 2 back, maybe he goes back to defence, or maybe he doesn't have a spot in that forward line. But he got that goal. He deserved it because he played the role really cleverly, because Taylor can take a game away from teams the way he can intercept the footy. The Giants, I mean, again, back-to-back weeks now where Hogan and Green have done next to nothing. Tommy McCartan had Jesse Hogan's measure. Hogan looked, he looked really frustrated, and he wasn't as active, and he wasn't moving around like he normally is. The reason Hogan's such a difficult matchup is he never stands still. He's in the phone box, he's moving, he's always first on the kicks that are rushed inside 50. Did kick 1 goal 3, but his impact wasn't there. Toby Green, really strange game again from him. Only had 13 disposals, didn't kick a goal. So credit to the Swans. They were able to handle him quite well in terms of when he was going forward, when he was in the midfield. They communicated really well, the high half-backs and the mids, in terms of where he was. The only sell point in the game for the Swans was that Lewis Malikan sort of round arm to Toby Bedford. That was at a big moment in the game too. Bedford was trying to do the job on Isaac Heaney. He's probably going, when we're recording Monday morning, you'll probably know the result. But if we had to guess, that's probably, now the matrix is the matrix, but he's probably in a bit of strife for that.
Well, there's no concussion. I feel like it was a bit clumsy, and he's just missed the ball, and he's clipped him on the way through. And he's got a clean record, Louis. He's a very Very clean player. I don't think he's ever done anything
the
like
good
that
bloke,
before.
the Charlie
so.
Cameron. You're going the Charlie Cameron good bloke defence.
Well, look, I feel like if anyone's going to get off, it's probably someone who's as lovely as Lewis Melican. So
Could you be a character reference called up for the tribunal hearing?
I'm more than happy to go down there if it gets Lewis off, and he can play against Essendon on Saturday at Marvel.
You were the chief motivator last week, and now you're the defence lawyer. But it was a good. I tell you what, I did like Flanas with the Swans. I saw some of the ball movement through the middle of the ground. Look, what made the Swans so damaging and so sizzling last year? We hadn't seen it a lot. I reckon that's because teams have gone to work on it and they've taken it away from the Swans. But we saw as that game opened up. Now, Sydney should have won that game by more. They kicked 12 goals, 15. Now, the Giants were a little bit inaccurate, but it was largely one-way traffic in terms of the overall dominance of the game. There were only small passages of the game where GWS looked like they were going to close the gap and potentially pinch it. So, Sydney, good performance, and I reckon they'll be pretty confident coming down to Docklands against Essendon. That's going to be a sneaky good game.
Yeah, if we have that efficiency going forward like we did yesterday, again, I said the mark's inside 50, 16-9. We're hitting them up on the lead instead of bombing onto McLean's head, and I thought the way the boys lowered the eyes coming through the corridor was really impressive. Yeah. So, big hopes for what the Schwannies can do at Marvel.
Before we move on, where's Logan McDonald? What's his status?
He's still going to be a while away. Yeah, they've had some complications with his lower leg issues, so we'll see how long that is. Taylor Adams should be back this week or next week, and Millsy should be back in the next 2 or 3. So,
how often are you checking the Swans injury list updates?
It's a regular thing.
Do we think any of the teams from New South Wales will be there at prelim final weekend, or have we put a line through both of them?
I have not put a line through the Schwannies.
No, we wouldn't be putting a line through them. The only problem for Sydney is when you get to so they were 2 and 5, now 3 and 5. Your margin for error becomes so small, so you just can't afford to drop really many or any of the ones that you should win. And we know that this competition is littered with games where you think a team should win and they don't win. So when you're 3 and 5 and you think about what you probably 13 probably guarantees you a spot in the 8. So, they need another 10 wins to guarantee themselves a spot. So the margin for error is low. I've been hanging on to the rope with the Giants. If I was to liken it to horse racing, I can't back them the next time they go around. I need to see it before I get back on. So I want to see them do it before I get back aboard the Giants.
And a tough game down at Geelong this week at HBA Stadium. So it's going to be a tough one for the Giants to bounce back, but we'll see what they've got. I think we all agree we might have seen 2 finalists go head-to-head in Sunday night footy at the end of Magic Round up in Brisbane. I thought that was a really good fixture, having that game as a 7:20 Sunday night game to sit down on the couch and get around. What do we make of Gold Coast v Brisbane? The Suns trying to come up, rise up the ladder. It's probably the best Suns side in their history, you could argue. Maybe best placed up against the Lions, but the Lions obviously men and right in the mix of potentially a premiership dynasty potentially.
Well, certainly one of those teams will be playing finals, and Brisbane is that team. Still not 100% sold on whether the Gold Coast will be playing finals, but time will tell there. But yeah, Lions just too good again. It was 2v3 and hyped up to be, this is where Gold Coast are going to match it with them. But Lions just beat them up around the ball, controlled the game around the ground. They're the number 1 clearance team in the comp, average 44 clearances a game. The number 1 marking team in the comp, average over 100 marks per game. They're the only team to do that. Yep. And again, last night, they were 20 plus of the clearances, 37 plus for the marks. They're getting 30 clearances a game out of Neil Dunkley, McCluggage, Will Ashcroft and the Big O. There's 10 blokes averaging 5 or more marks per game. Jack Payne and Harris Andrews, you can't get through them in the air. They're top 4 in the comp for spoils, both of them. Yep. So, the Suns learnt again. The bigger brother is just too good for them at the moment, and they've got a lot of work to do to match that gap.
What did you make of it, JJ, in terms of game styles? I know going in we were having to think around the way the Gold Coast like to move the footy and the way Brisbane also like to do that. And how do you think that one played out?
I just Brisbane are the focus coming out of this game for me. There's no doubt some disappointment from anyone who's been getting around the Suns as I have, but simple fix, and Damien Hardwick said as much after the game, simple fix, simple analysis for the Suns. You just can't get embarrassed around the ball like that. They just got absolutely taught a lesson in contested ball clearance situations. They were dominated by Brisbane, and we did hear a lot about, Gold Coast have built this deeper midfield. So, Rowell, Anderson and Miller are all stars in their own right. But now, Bailey Humphrey gets around the ball. Flanders is thereabouts. You're seeing some other guys move around the footy. But Brisbane are just littered with A-grade midfielders. And I think if you think about the respective roles, I think both Ashcrofts, now Levi is going to get better and better, but both Ashcrofts, Jared Berry as a big, strong winger who can run with the opposition's best mid. Lachie Neale speaks for himself. McCluggage, at this point, I think is locked into the All-Australian team. So the Lions have got the deepest midfield in the competition. I haven't even mentioned Zach Bailey and Cam Rayner. Now, Rayner's influence in terms of his numbers wasn't high last night, but he physically pushed around some of the Suns guys. So I love Brisbane because it's pick your poison. If you want to go and play a high uncontested possession game style, well, the Lions are like 96% win rate when they take over 100 uncontested marks. If you want to make it chaotic, which I think's the way Gold Coast wanted to play the game, well, they can beat you in that space as well. They'll just bash you up at contest and lock the ball inside their forward 50. The Suns just couldn't move the footy in any way, shape or form last night, and you've got to give Brisbane massive credit. I just think they're going so far under the radar for who they are and what they've achieved over the past 4 or 5 years. It's not funny. Like, they're a breath away from being back-to-back premiers, and they've done next to nothing wrong. They put in one terrible performance against Collingwood a couple of weeks ago. Otherwise, they've hardly put a foot wrong. I think they are cruising along, and they're about to get better. Tom Doedee was best on ground in the VFL. He's played 4 games back from back-to-back ACLs. Kadeem Coleman had 28 disposals in the VFL as well, and Brandon Starcevic apparently has started some contact work as well. So they've got 3 genuine guns to come back into the team. It is scary.
They're going to be tough to beat, and especially those home finals up there. When you get in a run where a team is, the premiership team, the best team in the comp, in the middle of their prime spot, like, I love watching these sides. Who's your favourite player to watch at the Lions? Mine would be Cam Rayner. I just love the way he drives through the contest, match winner. He's tough, he's good overhead, and he can do some creative things as well. Who's your favourite player of the Lions? Just want to give some love to them at the moment.
Well, I mentioned last week Lachie Neale, and he's awesome every week.
Give me a left fielder, Flan. Give me a left fielder that we haven't mentioned, because they got a heap of them.
Darcy Wilmot is doing a bit for me. Every time he gets involved, they're doing good things. So love his work off the halfback.
Moff.
For me, it's either Kai Lohman or Zach Bailey. Yep. Just X factors. Both
scoreboard impact.
Yeah. Love when they can pop up, kick you 2 or 3 goals a game. Then you're flying. So
who's your boy, JJ?
I reckon Zach Bailey would be a genuine A-grade mid at most clubs. He just barely even gets midfield minutes at Brisbane. He's been a pretty good source of goals for them. He played on the wing last night. That's the other thing. Like, Zach Bailey and Rayner and a few others, you don't know if they're going to pop up on the wing. They're going to play inside mid. They're going to play forward. You don't know what they're going to do, and they're all really good ball users. A guy who had a massive finals campaign and a big grand final, Calamar, he used to be a Gold Coast Sun. He barely makes a mistake. He's clean in the air. He's tough in a contest. He kicked that massive goal in the prelim final to put them in front against the Cats and kick 4 in the granny. He's actually a star, but again, he just falls to the wayside when we're thinking about all these players that Brisbane have. So I'm all aboard the Bris Vegas train.
Just on the Suns, do we feel like they try to be an outside team a bit too much? Like, instead of absorbing pressure and going contest to contest, they try to feed it out to Noble and Flanders and Jeffrey and Rioli and these sort of outside types and go out wide instead of like we spoke about Collingwood absorbing the contest and then just barrelling through it. Do the Suns need to do that a little bit more with the likes of Miller and Rowell and Anderson? Rowell's only had 16 yesterday, as we said, beaten up around the ball. I just wonder whether the Suns maybe have to move their focus towards, charging through the corridor as opposed to flicking it out to these wider ball users.
Yeah, I mean, their profile has been really strong up until this point. They've been pretty good in all aspects of the game until this point. I just think that they just got completely blown away. It's one of those games where it is by no means a sweep it under the rug, it didn't happen type performance. It wasn't that type of game. I think it was just a great lesson, a great reminder that we think we're going okay, but this is what the premiership level is. This is what it looks like when you run into, a pair of key defenders in Andrews and Payne who give you absolutely nothing. And Ben King had 2 disposals last night, and Jono Brown spoke about it relentlessly. King was playing from the back spot in a night where it was quite slippery and the rain was falling. He needed to play old school footy and play in front. I think it's really fascinating. I think we've mentioned it on this show before. The Suns continue to persist with Reid and Walter. Neither guy is setting the world on fire. I mean, from week to week, one of them's doing enough to get a game the following, but neither of them have really played well in the same game. But I think that is a long-term view. Both guys are going to be really good players, so let's continue to get games into Reid and Walter. And hopefully it doesn't cost us from winning games week to week. Now, it wasn't the reason they lost the game last night, but it certainly didn't help them having 3 tall forwards on a night when it was wet and slippery.
The things are, the 2 areas that I think are the most important at the moment is contested ground balls and teams that when they take marks in between the arcs, in between the 250s, that play on, reel and go, give that quick handball. Sometimes it might be turning blind, but to get out the back of the space. I think they're the 2 aspects that I love watching, but I'm keen for your view, JJ, and whether you think those are the 2 key factors that will stand up in finals and the key to the being at the pointy end.
I was having I should have sent you guys a message to get your views, and you can maybe think of it on the spot. But I think having creative kicks out of halfback is crucial. Having guys, so Noble is a dasher and Rioli's a dasher, but they're not necessarily super creative kicks. Now, you look at Dane Zorko, he is a really, really creative kick. He can kick drop punts off the outside of his boot. He can always find a way to bring it back through the corridor. He also understands I watched him a lot last night. He understands the angles and where you should run for a 45 kick inside, how you can sort of lull your opponent to sleep, your forward who's defending you, lull them to sleep and then slip in and get an uncontested mark. I think the guys who can create off halfback versus the guys who just run sort of aimlessly off halfback. That's why, a guy like Dan Houston is so valuable because, yes, he's a long kick, but he's very creative. He can hit the in-between kicks, which then, if you hit the in-between kick 35 metres away, and you think about proactive defenders, all of a sudden they are now really close to the ball, one handball, and then you can get out the back and you can access the space at the back. So I think Dane Zorko is one of the most creative kicks in the competition off halfback. Dan Houston's another. I was trying to think of guys like Errol Goulden when he's playing, even though he plays on the wing. He's unbelievable, Flan, at hitting the in-between kick. He can almost make someone go to the space that he identifies.
And that's why Riley Bice has been really important in his absence because he's been able to pick up some of the slack. Lizard can't do it all by himself, so Riley Bice has been really important. He's the
other one. Blakey's the other one who can... Now, Blakey's got a completely unique skill because he can run at full speed but still hit the touch kick. It's the touch kick I'm talking about. Like, anyone can run flat out and kick it as far as they can. And look, if you get it out the back, that's fantastic. But it's the guys who can hit that in-between kick and really, really disrupt the team defences that are so well set up.
Adelaide have got one. He's my new favourite player, Max Michaelani.
Yes, he was great on the weekend.
You need one of them to obviously get the ball movement going so you can get out the back. What was your best clubbyman of the round nominations? Keen to get them out. I was at the Richmond Hawks game and Jaden Short did not stop setting up his team, pointing the pistols with his fingers, his voice, just a general down back. I know he's an unbelievable bloke too. Great clubman, team first attitude. I think Jaden Short deserves to be in the best clubman mix. He's been the best clubman at that club for best part of a decade.
Yeah,
Moff.
good nom.
So I had one down, but I'm changing mine, and it's Massimo D'Ambrosio. I think
nice.
there was a video on social media the Hawks posted before the weekend. It was of Massimo's Nono talking about Josh Weddle. Nonno talking about Josh Weddle's 50th game, and it was so good. And you can only tell that, like, if someone's Nono is getting posted on the social media, they must be a favourite around the club. So yeah, it was a very good little clip there, so you should go check that out.
I'm going with Cal Wilkie at the Saints, who had 24 disposals at 83%, 14 marks, 7 scoring involvements, 3 tackles. One of the best defenders in the comp year after year, leading the comp for marks this year, but just goes about his business. Seems like a good fella to go and have a few beers with. And you'd imagine he'd be a pretty big cog in the end of season trips and functions down at the Saints. I reckon he's right in the middle of that. So I'm going Cal Wilkie.
Yep, love that, Flint. JJ.
I'm going with one of my favourite players in the competition, the Chief, Harris Andrews, down back. I love a player who just has no regard for how many touches they get in a game of footy. He is the happiest player to run the ball over the boundary line for a throw-in that I've seen in the game. When most players are doing anything they possibly can to handball it over their head so they get the stat, he just could not care less. He is an absolute brick wall. So Harris Andrews, the co-captain of the Brisbane Lions for me.
Very good. Some great nominations there. I couldn't argue with any of those. So we'll put the poll up. Let us know what you think, and we'll just keep building this Best Clubman Award. And we might get a graphic out, I reckon, Moff, and just recap who's
Best 22.
Who we got?
Who we got so far. Flan, I hear you've been doing a bit of work. There's a couple of months into the season on your Brownlow predictor.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple of these Brownlow predictors around. I saw AFL.com had one, and there's a couple others around. I thought I'd do my own one. I've based mine around the coaches' votes. So each week, coaches do 10 to 1 their players that they believe deserve votes. I've gone through each game, and whoever's got the 10 votes or the most votes for any given week gets the 3, and so on and so forth. If there's been a tiebreaker, I've gone with the midfielder ahead of any other player, and if they're both midfielders, then I've gone with whoever had the most disposals / goals on the weekend. So on my leaderboard at the moment, the person who's polled the most times is Nick Dacos. He's polled in 6 games. The guys who've polled the most best on ground, Neil, Butters and Dawson, have all got 3 vote games. Dawson probably has another one after the coaches' votes come out for round 8.
He was huge.
Yeah, he was massive. What do you have? 22 at 86, 8 tackles, 6 clearances, 7 marks, 9 score involvements, and 3 goals. So he's one to watch for the Brownlow. He might jump into first after that performance on the weekend. But Nick Dacos is the total leader on my Brownlow at the moment. He's got the 10 votes. Neil, Butters and Dawson, Sidebottom, Brayshaw, Sarong, all on 9. And then McCluggage, Bailey Smith on 8.
Yep. I think the coaches' voting is a good way to go about it. I think they have the best insight on the game. I've kind of lost a bit of faith in the Brownlow votes.
The umpires don't quite see it as well as the coaches.
Yeah, so Coach Association votes are definitely a good one to go off. Any surprises there, JJ? Who would you be tipping for?
I'm having a look at the. I was just having a look at the market for the Brownlow. I was trying to identify someone that's, maybe over the odds, and we could have a little look at and follow. I think Dawson's teammate Isaac Rankin, he'd have to have a few votes as well. He would have been challenging for the 3, if not the 2 on the weekend. He's $41. If you can get some of these guys, each way or top 5 when those sort of markets come out, he's a big price. And I mean, would Dangerfield have 3 best on grounds?
Danger, where is he? I have him.
Would, and we know he polls. Does Rankin traditionally poll?
I've got Danger for 4 votes so far. Based
4
on the
votes. Well, have you done the weekend? Have you done the game?
No, So the coaches' votes haven't come out yet. So
of course. Yep.
This will be updated shortly. But it'll be interesting to see. As I said, Dawson, I think, will jump to the lead after his 3-voter on the weekend.
Well, Dangerfield's $51. I reckon I had a quick look before. There's some chance he's got 3 best on grounds, some chance from the umpires. And as you said, Patto, like because he's doing his business in the fourth quarter as well, that's what umpires are going to remember. So he's $51. And if the Swans get on a roll, Isaac Heaney's $67. Goulden hasn't been there to take any of his votes. He won't be there for a little bit longer yet. Chad Warner, I thought, was the best player in the ground yesterday, but Heaney would be someone who you could see trimming up from $67 to $18 if the Swans get on a roll. So maybe Dangerfield and Heaney at a massive price.
Yep. I'm pretty big on John Newcomb at the moment. I think, where's he polling in yours, Flan?
Oh, I've got him on 4 votes.
4. Yeah. I think he polled really well last year, also in the Brownlows. So keep an eye on him. That's pretty much it for the show that we wanted to cover. How did JJ? You played some footy on the weekend. How'd you go, mate? First game back.
Yeah, it was good to be buzzing around and running around for a couple of hours. We got beaten, which was unfortunate. The 6-year-old handled the loss better than last time. She doesn't quite understand that when you don't win, you don't sing the song. So we played it on Spotify on the way home a couple of times, the theme song, and she was all good. So good to get out there, good to run around, and you quickly lose the sight and sense of local footy when you don't get to go around for a few weeks. So looking forward to the next opportunity. Hopefully it can be a winning one.
How did you go? How many goals? What was the critique on your performance?
I kicked 2 goals, 1. I felt pretty good. I went in a little uncertain about a right calf concern, but got through unscathed, and I was all right. I didn't set the world on fire, but I don't know whether I've got the match winning capabilities left in me in local footy. So I might just be another role player, Flan, as I can see you grinning from ear to ear.
Well, Moff has actually reached out to one of your teammates just to get a bit of an update. So we wanted to hear from one of the young forwards up there, Lockie McClellan. So Almac is a big fan of the podcast. So Let's hear what he had to say.
Boys, tough weekend for the Tigers this weekend. We had a bit of cavalry back this weekend. Big JJ back into the side, which was nice. Back into the cage for the big man. I've been having a run around up there in the forward line, but when the big fella comes back and wants the cage, he says jump and I say how high. So I went up to the wing for a run, got off the chain, which was nice. Our delivery into the big fella was pretty ordinary on the weekend. We didn't really give him much of a look at it, which was a bit disappointing, but nonetheless, he threw his weight around and had a massive impact on the game. So we can't complain at all. When the big fella's there coming out of the cage, he's a serious operator. Thanks, boys.
So a couple of things there. Poor Almac, who's been, the full forward for the first month, has been booted out of the forward line for JJ to come back. And secondly, he loves talking about the cage, doesn't he?
Yeah, he loves the lion cage, or the tiger cage, I should say. We are the Tigers. Well, I actually ended up in heaven forbid, I ended up in the ruck for a fair bit because our number 1 ruckman has got sore ribs. Our number 2 ruckman is sitting beside you, Flan. He was unavailable, and our number 3 ruckman hurt his calf, so I ended up in the bloody in the ruck for quite a little bit of time. I tell you what, I had I was doing the Brodie Grundy, Kieran Briggs standing on the line, just not interested in jumping, and the young Bort ruckman were. I don't think they'd seen anyone who was totally unwilling to get involved in a jumping contest. So it was a bit of fun running around up in the ruck. But I'm happy to go back to the cage next time I'm playing.
Geez, you would have needed a compass being outside the forward 50. You would have got lost out there.
Well, it was good to get up and get your hands on the figures. Almac said it wasn't exactly coming in beautifully, so it was nice to get up there and get involved in the game. I was just trying to quickly Google my career hitouts versus yours, but I can't find them in
Oh,
time.
no. We'll have to have a look another week. But thanks to Al Mac.
I've got him here.
Moff's got him.
Moff.
So,
Mate, I was looking at Sanderlands, Moff.
JJ had
here we go.
675 career hitouts, and Patto, you had the 452.
Oh, wow.
Ah,
Okay.
So,
452. Wow,
Yeah.
jeez. I've got my hand on a lot.
yeah.
Bloody
you have got your
midfielders
hand
at the
on it a lot.
Tigers.
You're right.
Yes, well played. Well, yeah, thanks to Al Mac. We were going to go with Noodle, but we thought Al Mac might have been a bit more diplomatic. Noodle would have given us some really interesting areas there, but we can maybe check back in with Noodle at another time. Well, that's a wrap. Anything else anyone's got burning that they need to get off their chest before we say goodbye to the plumbers?
Well, I did say last week, Freo's bottom half for a bit of a watch. And on
Ooh.
Friday they weren't a very good watch.
Oh, that was
You were right,
gosh.
Flan. You were. Yes.
I said if you stop Sarong, Brayshaw, Young, Clark, Bolton
Yep.
from having a major influence, they got nothing else. And that's exactly what the Saints did. Between the five of those guys, they only had 64 disposals, and the Saints restricted Freo to 8 scoring shots for the game.
Yes.
So, yeah, still a watch on that bottom half at Freo.
I'll leave you with this. I mentioned the sting in the tail. That's the safest trend in footy at the moment. So Fremantle been stung against potentially a weakened Collingwood. Carlton, after being smashed by Adelaide against St Kilda, who'd be feeling themselves after a nice victory, if you don't mind. Gold Coast, after being humiliated by Big Brother against the Dogs, who would have to be feeling themselves. Port, after being beaten by 90 against the Crows in a showdown when the Crows have just won by
showdown.
60, and it's a Port home showdown. That means a fair bit. And the Giants, after being bashed up by the Swans, have got a pretty good record in Geelong at GMHBA against the Cats. So there's 4 or 5 teams who fit the bill perfectly for the team that's been embarrassed the week before against a team who might be feeling themselves. So we can check back on these matchups this time next week, boys.
I reckon the Eagles might roll the Tigers too and get their first win of the year. So,
Wow.
will be interesting to watch. Can't wait. Footy's in a good place at the moment. Hopefully some big games next week.
Can
Yes,
I ask
JJ?
one quick question before we go?
Please
Where the hell is Ninja Stadium?
That's Hobart or Launceston.
That is Launceston.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, Hobart. It is
Hobart,
Hobart.
yeah, Hobart.
Hobart, yeah. North
Yeah.
don't play in Lonnie. Okay, so that's what they're calling the joint in Hobart these days. Okay. I didn't think it was Hobart because it starts at 4:40. You're cold. But anyway, there you go. Thanks
Yeah.
for answering that.
Home of the all-conquering Hobart Hurricanes in the Big Bash.
Yes. Is it Ninja like
The food processor, yeah.
like the
The
NutriBullet
blender,
type
the
thing.
blender, yeah.
Yeah,
How clever. That's a great name.
yeah. Not actually. There's no like ninja organisation
Nah,
that's sponsoring.
there's no
the
ninjas
ground.
down there.
Yeah.
Oh, they could be, but
Yeah. Well, hopefully North come to play in their attitude and competitiveness is not like a ninja in there.
oh god, it's a good way to end it.
What a way. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bigger
Yeah,
footy.
boys.
Thanks, Flan. Thanks, JJ. On your muff.
See you, boys.